It's no secret that there are some divisive series in the Gundam franchise. Seed is automatically hated by new fans, and some hold on to that hate with all their might. And the more recent series, such as Iron-Blooded Orphans and The Witch from Mercury, are also split among fans. But there is one piece of media that the fan base is united in thinking that is the worst of the worst. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you G-Saviour. And that sums up the entirety of what I think of this movie. Hi guys, this is Prototype Kai. Now this is originally supposed to be a video for the Gunpla Grunts and Gaming podcast. Shout out to Mokomeka Pilot, our host. Check out his Twitch, and check us out every other Saturday. And today's topic is none other than G-Saviour. I volunteered for this. I want to preface this, I volunteered for it. Anyway, let's start with the overview. The earliest whisperings of a live-action CGI Gundam was back in April in 1995, somewhat in answer to Jurassic Park, with the argument of the film having live actors and CGI dinosaurs. The question obviously became, why don't we do that with mobile suits? And so for the next 4 years, first director of the DID promotions, Koichi Inoue, at Sunrise, worked with legendary mecha creators Kunio Okawara for the mobile suit designs, and Masahisa Suzuki for more additional mechanical detail, mostly guns. He also went overseas to North America to find a CGI company that they could work with. And he ended up with Digital Muse because of their reputation for working on big productions such as Star Trek. And they used the same digital imaging software that Bandai was using at the time, Lightwave. To say the production was rough would be an understatement, with American sci-fi being ultra-futuristic, with funny costumes and pocket weapons with stun options. It didn't gel too well with a giant robot with a face. Inoue did actually give a lecture, and they actually did watch some Gundam. But then he also tried to introduce the idea of realism, because they didn't want it to look like giant plastic models. Now, a language barrier was obvious, but there was also the different ideas of how to make a movie. But then there was also stalling, again. There was also the title, G-Saviour, and the conspicuous name spooking American Christians, and you get a bit of a flawed film that actually looks pretty good. Oh. From the CGI standpoint, anyway. The rest of the props in the movie, however, are all reused from other movies like Starship Troopers. And I swear that's a warp core. Anyway, let's move on to the actual plot. The plot of G-Saviour can be described as... what the f just happened? The movie opens up with the briefest of brief for the past 200 years of the Universal Century, with no mention of Zeon, of the Earth Federation, of Zanskar, any of it. For context, though, the Earth Federation has long since fallen by this point, and has been replaced by the Congress Settlement of Nations, or Consent. I've used this joke before. Now, of course, they are presented as the main antagonists for the film, and the ones fighting against the Congress are the Illuminati. Oh, this movie is so bad. Now, the actual plot starts with our main character, Mark Kuran, a former congressional pilot doing his job on the bottom of the sea floor in a mobile worker called the Guppy. Now, Mark is your stereotypical American pilot kind of MC, which is demonstrated when a congressional mobile suit, the Bugu, and its pilot are downed. Now, when the pilot starts asking for help, Mark says,
What's the matter? Go somewhere else to be?
The dude's actually drowning, man. But when he really starts to panic, Mark just starts helping. Like, he just starts helping. But after saving the pilot, the underwater base is infiltrated by agents from the space colony called Gaia? Not long after, congressional soldiers led by Mark's former boss, Jack Hale, arrive and fire upon the unarmed agents. But thanks to Mark's intervention, they arrest one of them, the only survivor, Dr. Cynthia Graves. Now, small time jump. It's implied to be the next day. And Mark is, they never say. For Dharma's sake, I'm just gonna say it's LA and move on. Anyway, Mark and his fiancée, Mimi DeVere, are getting ready for this big party when Mark catches the news and it's covering the rig, but it's blowing everything out of proportion, saying that the infiltrators were terrorists and that they were heavily armed, which is a lie. But he and Mimi go to the gala to hear the president's speech. Mark trades barbs with Jack, and he talks with General Garneau about the false news, and it's kind of brushed aside, and Garneau asks him to interrogate Cynthia for him because she's not fond of congressional soldiers. Gee, I wonder why. But he obliges, and in the middle of the gala, he goes down to the prison, which is under the HQ apparently. Anyway, after reassuring Cynthia Graves that he's not part of consent, she tells him that they were actually there to retrieve a sample from Dr. Riva. We never see him. From Dr. Riva, who is apparently working with her on a bioluminescent enzyme that will cure world hunger. It's never been a problem in the Universal Century. She convinces Mark to help her. They end up dodging Jack, who ends up killing the guard on watch, blames it on Mark, and forces him and Cynthia to escape down a body dump. Now on the run, Cynthia and Mark meet up with two other agents, her interns, friends Dieter and Kobe, to go into space. They are intercepted by Mimi, who then confirms that Consent knew that the enzyme existed and wanted no one to have it. But they end up getting into a shuttle and going up to the space colony, Side 6, also known as New Manhattan. There, Mark reunites with another former congressional pilot, now a member of the Illuminati, Philippe Saint-Simon, who tries to convince him to join in and to pilot the G-Saviour, the titular Gundam. He refuses, but he ends up taking the mobile suit anyway. Oh yeah, Jack's a dick. On the next flight, Cynthia asks Mark why he's not a military pilot anymore, and we learn about his tragic backstory, where he was court-martialed for apparently attempting, not even actually disobeying orders from Jack to try and save a pilot. They're interrupted, first by Mimi, and then by an asteroid field. Jack finally jumps into the G-Saviour, where we get a good look at its space type of the G-Saviour. They eventually arrive at Gaia, and Cynthia's father, the leader of Gaia, is very opposed to any kind of war. I mean, we gotta have one of those characters in Gundam, so they got that right. Anyway, Cynthia and Mark end up getting a little too close and start falling in love. And then they kiss. Oh. Good job, Mark, you fucking idiot. Now, properly motivated, Mimi betrays Mark and the rest of Gaia, hacking into the colony's mainframe and firing on a congressional ship to spark conflict. And which works, and the colony scrambles to defend themselves. Mark makes mobile suit teams out of the techies and tries to get Mimi to evacuate, and she drops that she did all this. I think the engagement's off, guys. Anyway, Mark takes a sweet time to actually get into the fight, by which Jack finally figures out and easily takes down all of the mobile suits that are basically just the gym. Anyway, Garneau sneaks onto Gaia, reconnects with Mimi to take the enzyme, and then monologue about how he's going to destroy the world. Pretty much. Mimi didn't sign up for this, she just thought he was going to control who got the enzyme. Well, she ends up slipping it back to Cynthia and Kobe. Oh, yeah, Kobe got shot, by the way. And then leaves with Garneau, who thinks he has won. Back in space, Mark finally beats Jack, and looks like he's about to get gunned down by Jack's reinforcements, when the Illuminati, apparently possessing an army greater than that of a Congress, shows up in another Gundam called the G-Saviour, and Jack goes into the colony to clean up the rest of the mobile suits. Garneau finally realizes that Mimi stabbed him, and because they are in a disguised Gaian transport, their own forces think they're the enemy, which Mimi finds hilarious, even in the face of death. Anyway, after cleaning out the consent troops in the colony itself, Counselor Graves gives a heartfelt speech about freedom, about the future, and how they're solving world hunger, and how Gaia will now be recognized as Side 8. Wait a minute. The Sides were a system in place all the way back with the Federation. Why do they care? Anyway, Mark says his goodbyes to Cynthia and plans to return to Earth to stand trial for the guard that was killed at the beginning of this whole mess. But then he convinces her to come to Earth with him? The end, by the way.